So one side is the Atlantic, one side is the Gulf, and we're being pushed out to the Gulf.
And I'm thinking that's probably not good. We have 5% left on our battery. We have no lights. It's dark as hell. We can't really see where we're at.
So he's not feeling well. He's having difficulties, and I'm not really grasping the extent of things at this point.
I know I've overexerted myself, paddling really, really hard, trying to get us back over. I knew it was important. I know I overdid it for what I shouldn't do, and I didn't want to admit that either. My pride was like, no, you're just a little tired. Don't look like a puss.
So at any rate,
but I was in trouble.
He stopped paddling, and I'm kind of doing it on my own and not making it very far, and realizing that, you know, we're just drifting backwards. So I decide that we need to get over to the mango trees, and mangrove trees, and I can probably, you know, grab a hold of the branches and pull ourselves around back into this little a cove thing where the docks are and all of that stuff, where there's no current. So after a long struggle, I finally make it over there, and Kevin had helped a little bit through this point.
At this point, I'm in my head knowing, hey, you're in trouble. There's something wrong. My chest is really tight, it hurts, and I'm starting to feel numbness in my arm and fingers, and I'm thinking, I just need to rest for a minute, I'll be okay. But
at this point, he starts telling me I need to call 911, and I'm like, yeah.
I said, we need help, we can't get out of this.
I'm like, no. And then he's like, I'm telling you we need help, and I'm like, what the fuck am I supposed to tell them? I don't know where the fuck we are.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm hooked up to a mangrove tree.
Yeah, we're not far from shore. It seems pitiful. But
there's no lights on the boat. There's no anchor. There's no GPS. No little black box. No nothing. I'm like, what the fuck am I supposed to tell them? Plus, I'm like, I'm not fucking calling 911. I can fix this.
I considered jumping in and trying to tow the boat.
The water was deep.
It was cold, and
the paddle and my arm would not reach the bottom, so I knew that was not a possibility. So I'm trying to pull. Kevin's behind me, and he's holding on to the mangrove trees too. And I turn around because I'm not moving, and as hard as I'm pulling, and he's holding on. So I tell him to let go. And
at this point, I'm sort of blacking out. I'm
continuing to pull, and I'm still not going nowhere. So I turn back around, and he's still holding on to the fucking tree. And so I'm screaming at him to fucking let go of the fucking tree.
And I'm thinking, no, that's all we have.
And I'm still trying to pull, and the current's so strong. I'm not able to pull this boat. It's a big metal John boat, and it's not going. So.
And now at this point, I realize I can no longer stay in this little seat in the John boat. That I need to lay down or slump down. And I think that's when she realized.
It was more like he fell down.
That's when she realized I was actually in trouble.
And of course, me being me, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing laying on the bottom of the boat?
There's no time to rest.
And so at this point, I decide, fuck it, I'm going to have to call. So I call 911, and this lady is, like, hi, what's your emergency? Where are you at? And I'm like, well, I don't know where I'm at. And she's like, what do you mean you don't know where you're at? And I'm like, I'm in a fucking dinghy on the water, and I think my husband's having a heart attack. I don't know where I'm at. And so she calls the Coast Guard, which I was just like, oh, seriously?
Yeah, great.
And gets the Coast Guard on the phone. So now I'm on this like three-way call with 911 and the Coast Guard. And they're asking me, what was going on, why are we stuck? And I explained the situation, that the boat won't start, we can't paddle, the current's too strong, he's falling out, I think he's having a heart attack. And they're like, well, okay, does he need medical assistance? And so I'm like, Kevin, do you need an ambulance? And he's like, no, I think I just exerted myself, I'm fine.
I'm thinking I just need to rest for a minute.
So I'm relaying what he's saying to 911 and Coast Guard. And they're like, okay, are you secure? And I'm like, yes, I'm holding on to these branches, and they're like, well, do you got an anchor? And I'm like, no, I don't got an anchor. And they're asking me my GPS coordinates, and I'm like, I don't know anything about GPS coordinates. And so she pings my phone and gets the GPS coordinates and gives it to the Coast Guard. In the meantime, there's a bridge about a football field length away from us. And it's lined with cops now. There's probably like 5 cop cars up there, and they've all got these big ass spotlights on us. And the 911 operator and the Coast Guard say, okay, well, the cops are there, you know, they've got you in your sights, they're, you know, you're not going to be, you know, if anything happens, they'll see, and you can call us back. So they hang up on me.
Yeah, at this point, I'm expecting a sheriff to come crawling through the mangrove and grab a rope and just pull us. You know, I really didn't think. And I'm thinking, this is starting to get a little too big. There's cops with flashlights on us. Ugh.
So after sitting there for a few minutes, I'm on my phone watching a Darman video, and
I'm laying there dying, and suddenly I hear she's watching Facebook videos.
I don't realize he's fucking dying. He won't tell me anything. He doesn't tell me anything. He's just like, I just overexerted myself. I need to rest. You know, he's not telling me, oh, I think I'm fucking dying. I'm having a heart attack.
I didn't want to punk out.
So next thing I know, he's screaming at me to turn my fucking phone down. So I'm like, fine. I put my phone down. And then he starts to tell me, you know, I think I'm in trouble. And I'm like, okay. So I call 911 back. I tell the 911 lady that luckily I got the same one. She's probably the only one there.
Yeah.
But I told her, I said, yeah, I said, I think he's going to need medical assistant. She says, well, I've already sent an ambulance there. It's there waiting as soon as the Coast Guard gets there.
And I've got this image, these cops are up there with binoculars looking over at us going, there's a man slumped over in the bottom of a boat and a woman that appears to be watching videos.
They've done, flown a helicopter in because the helicopter flew over top of us.
And I thought, oh my God.
And she told me that the Coast Guard would be there in about 5 to 10 minutes, which in reality was more like 20, 25 minutes.
And I expect, okay, we got a little rubber boat coming. Pull us out of there.
No,
Great.
no.
Nope.
Big, huge fucking Coast Guard boat.
It was too big to be in that channel.
So they want me to hand them the rope that is tied to the boat, which is probably 3 feet long. So I'm standing on the bow of the boat and, you know, reaching my arm out for them to get it. And it took them a good 10 minutes to get a hold of the rope, and they get the rope, and then they got to twist our boat around and get it situated right so that they can tow us. And
they're yelling at her, rotate the stern of your vessel and hand off the bow line to the, and like, we're in a John boat, stop it.
I told him, I said, look, I said, I can help. I said, but I'm not a boat person. I don't know seaman language, you know, marine biology,
language.
You know, I mean, I don't know that shit, you know. Speak to me in layman's terms.
Yeah.
Hey, get up at the front of the boat, hand me the fucking rope. That's how you got to talk to me. And so we get all that situated. We go to the dock, and they literally park, and we've got to actually climb over like 2 people's other boats that are really nice boats. I'm sure those people wouldn't have been happy over the situation. But anyway, I get ashore, they get him ashore, they throw him in
they carry me out of the boat, and I don't remember much after that.
The ambulance. Now we're at this little dock, and there's a store there, and people got their boats there.
Jet ski rental place.
Jet ski rentals, paddleboard rentals, all that kind of stuff. So we're at this little place, which is right next door to the Airbnb owners. So we're standing in the parking lot. They're loading him up in the ambulance. I got this crazy drunk woman who I've never seen in the parking lot with a dog yelling and screaming at the cops to arrest him. And I'm like, what the fuck is she talking about? So I finally said, what are you talking about? She says, I'm not fucking talking to you. I'm talking to the fucking cops. I'm like, okay. So the paramedic, or the Coast Guard guy, is asking me, what is she talking about? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know who this woman is. So she's screaming at a cop, which actually wasn't a cop. It was a Coast Guard guy. She's screaming at the Coast Guard guy to arrest Kevin, who's now in the ambulance getting EKGs hooked up to him. And finally she comes over and starts talking to my Coast Guard, and what it was is she thought he was Captain Lee. And I'm like, no. I said, you got the wrong fucking person, woman. I said, we rented a boat from them out there. I said, and we're left stranded here. I said, we have nothing to do with that shit. And so she's like, oh, so she fucking takes her little dog and struts off. They tell me to get into the front of the ambulance. So I get all my shit and I get it in the front of the ambulance. And she comes out from behind the ambulance and is talking to me, and I'm like, okay, is he having a heart attack? And she says, we're not sure yet. You know, there's some anomalies on the EKG, you know, that we're really concerned about, so we're going to take him to the hospital. And I was like, okay. She's like, so just sit up front. Well, the Coast Guard guy is still talking to me about the other people that are out in the water. So I'm trying to explain to him, you know, I know she's got 4 other boats out there. I was under the impression from what they had told me that all 4 were rented. But I did know for a fact that there was a husband and wife and their 2 kids out there. And they're asking me, you know, what boats are there? And I'm like, I don't know. There's like 50 boats out there. I just know that there's people out there that are stranded. And
they're not going to take her out there to get her luggage. That's not their job.
Take me out there to get my luggage. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll just go to the hospital with him. You know, we'll deal with this shit tomorrow.
So meanwhile, I'm in the ambulance when this is happening. I'm in the ambulance. I'm not sure what's going on. I'm kind of out of it. But I'm telling them, that, you know, just I figure they'll check me out. Everything's good. I just need to rest. I'm fine. Get us to our stuff. Get us out of here. And they've run an EKG, and they're the paramedics are all looking at it and pointing at it and talking to each other. And they ran several more. And then the guy finally leans over and whispers, "We're just trying to decide to take it to the hospital because we're showing some anomalies on your EKGs. We've run 5 and they're all bad." So now I'm thinking, what? And then I start asking where Bandy is, and they don't know.
So the lady comes out and is talking to me and is explaining to me that they're going to life flight him to Miami. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, Miami? I'm like, why can't he just go to the hospital here? And she's telling me because they don't have a cardiac wing here and they can't treat him there, that they would just, if they took him to that hospital, they would end up life flighting him to Miami anyway. So they're just going to directly life flight him to Miami to save a step. And I'm like, okay. So I tell the Coast Guard guy, I said, okay, well, I've got another problem. I said, all of my stuff is out on this houseboat. I said, which is all well and good. I said, that shit can all be left. I said, but I've got my guns out there. And he's like, well, how many guns do you have out there? And I'm like, I've got 2. And he's like, well, what kind of guns are they? And I'm like, they're handguns. He's like, well, are they loaded? And I'm like, well, of course. Yeah. Why are you going to carry an unloaded gun around? And so he makes a couple phone calls and comes back and says, okay, well, we've got to get you out there to get those guns. So,
which is smart. Meanwhile, I'm doing the same thing. I'm trying to argue for helping my wife get to our tiny house because I figured the gun thing would help. Maybe the sheriff's department would help out at that point. Hey, we can't leave our guns there.
So he decides he's going to take me out there to get that shit. He goes and knocks on the ambulance door. The lady answers, and she's like, he's like, well, you know, we've got to take her out there to get her stuff. You know, are you going to be here for a few minutes? And she's like, no, we've got to go now. And he's like, well, you know, she's really got to get her stuff. And the lady's like, well, she can't go anyway. She can't go on the helicopter. And I'm like, great.